if I actually get through this part of the show without shedding a tear, it will be a bit of a miracle. So listeners, please bear with me, because it's a very emotional story I'm about to tell you. In November 2007, Alfie Johnson was born at Russell's Hall Hospital in Dudley. After his delivery, it was apparent that something was wrong. Alfie had a very low heart rate and was in need of oxygen as he was born lifeless and blue. He was taken to the neonatal ward, where he was in an incubator to help his breathing. It wasn't long before the devastating news was given to his parents that he had suffered from oxygen starvation, and this had left him severely brain damaged. As months went by, it became clear that Alfie had been severely impaired. He was diagnosed with hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. The injuries he sustained have also caused him to suffer with seizures, and he's also visually impaired. Alfie now needs special care for the rest of his life as a result of his condition. Through physio, occupational and speech therapy, Alfie has been able to make some good progress. Through this therapy, it's become apparent that Alfie responds well when he goes into a sensory room. He interacts well with the fibre optic lights and the bubble tubes and other sensory equipment. Through the Friends of Alfie Johnson organisation, our aim is to provide Alfie with the essential equipment and services that is required to enhance his quality of life. Of course, the equipment that he needs is very expensive, and through fundraising events and the generosity of others, we hope that we'll be able to help Alfie so that he can live his life to the full. With actually Paul in the studio is Alfie's father, Paul Johnson. Good evening, Paul.
Good evening. Thanks for inviting me on tonight.
Pleasure. Very warm welcome to Talking Bowls. Delighted to meet you, and delighted to hear about what to me is a very emotional story. But you're a proud dad, and obviously. And how's Alfie doing? Tell me how he's doing.
He's doing better than he was. He's going to obviously, as you pointed out in the letter there, that he is going to need help for the rest of his life now. But he does. He's got a lot of help, and he's got a lot of good carers. And through therapy, he is starting to make some progress. But he's going to need a lot of care now, right the way through the rest of his life.
I mean, we must mention that the charity event was held at Cradley Libs Bowling Club on May Day, and the event was to raise funds for Alfie. I gather it was a miserable day weather-wise, but a great success.
Very much a success. I think anybody who's been on the YouTube or been on the websites and seen what a success it was, I've got no idea who won, and it really didn't matter. It was a fun day. I think everybody who bowled ended up with a face painted. All sorts of costumes. Mine was better than anybody else's, but all sorts of costumes were taking place. It was just an absolutely fun day, and we raised quite a bit of money, surprisingly, really, considering the weather restricted the amount of people that could turn up.
Yeah. What was the format of the competition, Paul, and who was involved?
It was a 4-man team competition. Basically, all the teams had a member on the green at all times. Basically, player 1 from one team played against player 2, player 1 from the other team, and throughout, so the teams were always there. There was always a bit of banter from the sidelines, etc. It was 32 selected forum members, mainly the top posters in the last year, and a few obviously couldn't make it, so we brought in some other people that we knew had got a bit of money and would dip their hand in the pocket. We didn't want the tight ones.
So Mandy and her marvellous team of helpers did another great job.
You can never fault Mandy when it comes to running a competition. Mandy knows how to do it, and like I say, this one, she took this on board. She was going to run a competition to help pay for Talking Bowls, and we'll raise a bit of money and pay for bandwidth and all that sort of stuff. But when I heard Alfie's story, me being a friend of Paul's from years gone by, drinking buddies and all that from many years ago, it sort of paled into insignificance, and we thought we'd got to do something, and Mandy jumped on board straight away, and was fantastic.
Yeah. So how much money was raised, Paul?
Well, I've just handed Paul a cheque for £822.
Thank you very much.
But I know that Mandy's had some some more donations via post. At least a couple of checks have come through. Some from outside the area, even people who weren't on, even people who are not normally Talkingbowls. They've gone through 21 Up, and Mike's just helped out as well. So thank you, Mike.
Yeah, that's marvellous. As we're talking on the show, Mike Wakeham has just made a donation to the fund. So thank you, Mike, for that. Going back to Alfie's dad, Paul, you must be delighted, Paul, by everyone's efforts.
It's unbelievable. Probably a lot of you got children yourselves, and Paul with young Jack. When you go into, you go into hospital, you expect probably the same day or the next day just to come out and you start your life as a family, with sleepless nights, dirty nappies. But unfortunately for me and my wife, it was completely different. And it wasn't initially that we knew exactly what the problem was. It's only as the months progressed, and it's only now, really, since he had an MRI scan at Birmingham Children's Hospital in March, and we had the results last month, which basically revealed that the whole of his brain has been damaged. So it's not just a specific area that we're dealing with. It's actually the whole of his brain has been affected. The only part of the brain that's not been affected is the cerebrum, which is the stem of the brain which controls the heart, lungs, that kind of thing. And he's able to eat normal foods with our help. Obviously, we have to do everything for him. But he can drink, he can eat, he eats really well, good healthy food, he's got a good appetite. So that's really quite positive, really. But everything else, he's going to need care right the way through his life, and he's also visually impaired as well. So he can't when he's in a sensory room, which he goes into every week, a couple of times a week at the nursery he goes to, he's able to he interacts in the sort of low light conditions with bubble tubes, fibre optic lights, but he can't focus. So like if I walk into a room and I say his name, he can't actually look at me and acknowledge that, but he probably obviously knows that I'm there, but there's not like the eye to eye contact as as you and I have actually got. It's a lot of things. It's only when this happens, you just take for granted, or everything that you're able to do, from like brushing your teeth in the morning to like going up and down the stairs. But he really is if you go onto the Friends of Alfie Johnson website, you can see pictures of him, and he's an absolute darling.